Hello and welcome to my channel for this very first video. This channel will be dedicated to World War I memorabilia and World War I item. The reason being that I tried for quite some time now to find similar content on the internet, either on YouTube or elsewhere, and I found very little people presenting their World War I collection. Many World War II, not so many World War I collection. Therefore, with this channel and the series of videos I will make, I hope to inspire some other collectors to do the exact same, to shoot their collection, film their collection, and put it on the internet. So, for this first video, I decided to make it about the French helmet model 1915, the Adrian Helmet, for a very simple reason. As you may have guessed from my accent, I am French, and I thought it would be fitting. Second, it's also because this helmet is quite emblematic for the French army and for the First World War, and also because it's quite available. If you want to buy one, it should not be difficult to find one for sale on eBay or on various auction online, or even live auction, or even on flea markets. So, some context. This helmet was introduced in 1915 by the French army, for a very simple reason that very early in the war, the French High Command realized that the soldiers were very often injured by shell fragments or shrapnels or other debris falling from the sky after a bombardment, and that was one of the main killer or the main reason why the soldiers were killed or wounded. And therefore, they decided it would be a good idea to come up with some kind of headgear protection for the soldier, and took some inspiration, as I said, on the French firefighter helmet. So let's take a deeper look at this helmet. As you can see, or as you could be able to see and feel if you were holding one in your hand, it's actually quite light. I believe it's roughly between 700 grams to 1 kilogram, so quite light. For our friend from the US, it's roughly 2 pounds or less than 2 pounds actually. It is made out of 4 sheets of metal: front visor, back visor, the main body of the helmet, as well as the crest. And those elements can be either riveted together or simply put together. What else? Something that is also very obvious, that's probably one of the main things you saw when you look at the helmet, is an insignia in the front. So here you have an insignia for the artillery, 2 crossed cannon and a flaming grenade. However, this insignia could also would be different for other type of units. So if we are to look at what we have on the table, the 2 in the back, you only have a flaming grenade, meaning it's for the infantry. This one with the helmet and the cuirass, it means it's for the engineering corps. And the one in the back, with the hunting arm, is for the chasseur. The chasseur is a light infantry unit. In German they call them Jäger, and if you loosely translate it in English it will be hunter. Okay, what else? Let's look again this helmet. On top of all these metallic parts I showed you, you can see on the front there is a chin strap, which is made out of leather. It's actually quite thin and therefore quite fragile, and it's the reason why most of the helmets you would find for sale on the internet will be missing their chin straps. If we turn around the helmet, you can see the interior. So basically the liner is again made out of leather. It can be either one piece of leather sewn together. Okay, here you can see how it has been sewn, and therefore it is a type 1 liner, or it can be actually made of multiple pieces of leather, and then it will be a type 2 interior. Okay, something you will also find very often in the helmet inside the liner, it's simply the size of the helmet. So this helmet came in different sizes, and the size would often be put inside the liner. So here you can see it's a 58B2. That's the size. What else? Again, inside the liner, you can see those little metallic parts, those little crenellation. That's simply some padding, first of all, for a better fit on the head of the soldier, and also to absorb shocks. Something you cannot see here on the screen is that inside this fold, so here you can see the leather is folded, and inside you will also have a little piece of cloth, of wool, to again better pad, again added for padding. Something you may have seen already is that there is a number written on top. So on this specific helmet, the soldier decided to write its regimental number, so the 176th Artillery Regiment, which actually was a heavy artillery regiment created in 1918. Therefore, we can say from this marking that it's very likely that this helmet was only worn at the very end of the war, especially since there is no other marking inside. Another thing you can see, maybe it's some differences in terms of shapes. So if you look at the crest for those various helmets, you can see that the crests are not always the same. Here you will have one crest that is kind of pointy, this one will be more rounded, this one will be also kind of at the same time round and pointy and quite wide. You can also see, if I bring it closely, look, that here there is, for instance, no rivet on this helmet. However, on this one there will be some rivets between the front and the back visor. Okay, and so all these differences are actually due to makers. So those helmets were made by a different manufacturer, and those manufacturers could either be a toy manufacturer, they could be a kitchenware manufacturer, bike manufacturer, anyway, from all kinds of industry. And of course, their method of production was not exactly the same, hence those differences. Another very big difference you will see on this helmet is in terms of color. So I will maybe try to get closer, and hopefully we will have a better, we'll see the color a bit better. And especially the one in the middle. As you can see, the one in the middle is way lighter in terms of blue than the others, simply because it's an early production, made in this very light shade of blue, of horizon blue. However, the French High Command realized pretty quickly that this shade of blue was way too light and way too shiny, and therefore made the soldier way too visible. Hence, what they did was simply to replace, I mean, first of all, to ask the soldier to put some cover on their helmets to make them less visible. And then also, but it was also not really a good idea, because they quickly realized that if you have some cloth on your helmet and then let's say a piece of shrapnel were to go through your helmet and into your, through your skull, then some pieces of fabric will be found in the wound, and those little pieces of fabric often not really, let's say, clean, because it's a helmet cover, will in turn create some infection. So it was not a good idea. So what they did was two things. First of all, for all the helmets that were in this color, they asked, this light shade of blue, they asked the soldier to repaint them. So that's what happened to this helmet. As you can see, you have the whole blue, like the first type of blue, of light blue, and it has been repainted on the field by a soldier. So what the army will do is they simply send some paint to the units in the front line and ask the soldier to repaint their helmets, and that's exactly what happened. You can even see, and it's quite interesting, the paint brush. So yes, those little lines, because they were painted by hand. So that's the first thing they did, repaint the one produced in the light shade of blue in a darker shade of blue. And then for all the new productions, they simply ask the manufacturer to produce them in a darker shade of blue. So for instance, if I were to put those two together, give me a second. Yes, you should probably see a difference in terms of shade. This one is way lighter than this one. This is even more visible between those two. If you look at it, those two, the one on the right and the one in the middle, the shade is even, the difference in terms of shade is even greater. What else? You also have differences between the one on the far left and the one on the far right. You also have some differences in terms of color, even though both of them were produced after this realization by the French army that they should be painted in a darker shade of blue, simply because they were made again by different manufacturers, and therefore there will be a slight difference in terms of color. What you will also find on helmets is sometimes the name of the soldier, not often, but sometimes the name of the soldier, which is exactly what we have here. So here the soldier put his name in the shin strap. It reads Brunswick. So this soldier was named Brunswick, and also was kind enough to put a little piece of paper inside the helmet with some more information. So he was a lieutenant. He was a lieutenant with the 8th Heavy Artillery Group and with the 38th Artillery Regiment, which actually is a good thing because it allowed me to find this soldier and to understand a bit better why this helmet is still in its early light blue color, and why it was not repainted. So simply because this officer who started the war in the artillery was then transferred to the Air Force, and therefore did not need his helmet anymore, and didn't need to have his helmet repainted. And it's the good condition of the helmet. If you look at the chin strap, it's actually quite flexible and in very good condition, and also the reason why it has not been repainted in the darker shade of blue. Another helmet that has been repainted, that I have, is this one. So this one is again an infantry helmet. Also has been repainted. You can clearly see, if I were to turn it around here, again the paint stroke, even covering the initial of the soldier. And what is also interesting is this soldier put some extra padding, let's say, in his helmet by putting some journal paper inside to add some extra padding. Also, what is interesting is that if you look earlier, I told you that within the fold of the liner there would be a little piece of cloth. Actually, here the soldier put it outside of the line. I mean, not inside the fold, but just outside. So you have this piece of cloth of wool outside. So you have like the 4 layers, let's say, the metal crenellation, the paper journal, the fabric, and the leather. Okay, to pad the interior of the helmet. Okay, what else in terms of chin straps? As you can see, this one has a different chin strap. This one basically was not an issued chin strap, it's a braided one. So I mean, some soldier, usually officers, usually associated to officer, will change the chin strap by chin straps they would buy simply in shops, or simply make new chin straps altogether. So I believe this is what happened here, because as you can see, it reused the buckle for from the old chin strap, the one that was issued. So it seems to me that it may have been made in the field by the soldier as well. Furthermore, if this is often associated, this kind of braided chin straps, it's simply because officers were given more, let's say, slack with regard to personalization of their equipment. A private was not allowed to do it. For an officer, it was a bit different, simply because, first of all, officers were supposed to buy their own equipment. So by buying their own equipment, of course, they will go to different tailor, and therefore the uniform might be a bit different. And yes, in general, they were given a bit more slack with regard to personalization. So that's why it's often associated to officers. In this example, for this helmet, I would tend to believe it was more maybe for a sergeant, because also sergeants were given a bit more slack with regard to personalization, given the fact it's not up to officer quality standards. And finally, I wanted to show you this last helmet, again for a Jaeger, so a chasseur, okay, which actually sports a metal plate, a brass plate, which is actually a commemorative plate that was issued to soldiers after the war in 1919, and to be put on their helmets. So if you turn around the helmet, you will find 2 rivets that hold in place this commemorative plate. It reads Soldat de la Grande Guerre, 1914-1918, which translated means Soldier of the Great War, 1914-1918. And then you have some space on top for the soldier to write his name if he wanted to. Obviously, this soldier did not want to write his name, so he just left it as is. What else can be said? This commemorative plate were actually, as I said, given in 1919. Why? Because soldiers were actually allowed at the end of the war by the French army to keep their helmet when they left the army. And for those who had left the army before this order was issued, they were provided with some new helmets on which they could put this commemorative plate. So this is it. Thank you very much for watching this first video. Next week I will make another one, this time about pickelhaube, so a spiked helmet, the model 1895, so not the one you see in the background but another one, Spectrum from the German army. So thanks a lot for watching, and see you next week for another video. Bye!